Hi guys, welcome to TJ's Aquatics. I'm TJ, and today's video was requested by some of the members here at the channel, and also my Facebook group and my Instagram feed. So the followers were asking me questions about conditioning the fish for breeding. So they wanted to know what foods to use for breeding their fish, and then if they're successful, what to feed the fry. So I've got some of the products here in front of me, but I will say this before we start: this isn't sponsored by anyone. These foods are foods that I use personally, and I'm not being paid by anyone to recommend any of these foods or anything like that. So let's take a closer look at some of the products that I personally use to condition my fish. So first up, we've got the frozen foods. We've got bloodworm, we've got the white mosquito larvae, or white mosquitoes, whichever that is. Then in this packet, so these food containers, they come in handy. I mean, some of these started falling out, so I've put them in this. This is brine shrimp with spirulina. Now the brine shrimp, I do have a live brine shrimp as well, because I used a brine shrimp hatchery, which I'll get into more detail in a minute. So this one, these are just prawns that I've bought from the supermarket. So with the prawns, I will say that you want to check the salt content. You want something with very little amounts of salt in, zero salt if you can get them, because obviously the freshwater fish, the amount of salt that you'll find in them varies, but the small amounts of salt are not going to harm your fish in any way. If you're doing regular filtration and everything else, there shouldn't be any problems with that. But I've done it personally in the past. If you're not comfortable with that, then don't try it. I'll probably get some hate for this, but you know, I do it quite regularly. I put some of them prawns in the tank there, and the fish love them. So I haven't got a problem with that. There's no obvious signs of you know, health deterioration or anything like that. The fish are all healthy and doing fine. So yeah, let's not go on too much about that. Right? Next up, we've got the Repashy. Repashy Foods. This one here is a spawn and grow. Which is obviously good for spawning your fish and growing your fry. Now these are a mixture, so they're a powdered mixture inside here, and you mix them into a gel mix. So you take the powder and then you put it into hot water, and you use, I think it's 2 parts water, 3 parts, yeah, 2 to 3 parts water to 1 part powder. So what I use is the spoons, the measurement spoons that you get for baking. I've got a little set of them which I use for my foods. So I'll take, I don't know, 50 mils of this, and then I'll mix that with 100 mils of hot water, and then I'll stir it up. I'll put it in one of these food containers. So I'll put about this much in probably, and then what I do is, once that's set into a gel, I use a knife to create portions, and then I pop them in the freezer, and then once they're frozen, you can tip the container upside down and just snap the portions out. Once I've done that, I'll put them into a smaller container, like a food container again, the type that you would find in like your takeaways. You'll get saucers inside of little takeaway pots. So I'll put a few pieces of the mixture once they're frozen. I'll put them in there to defrost them. I'll put that in the fridge, and they'll last a couple of days in the fridge, probably a week or so in the fridge. So throughout that week, I'll have a week's worth of the frozen mixtures. So I'll have a few different ones. I'll put them in different pots, and I'll just write with a marker pen on the top on the lids to say which one's which, so I know which tanks to feed them to, because I've got a variety of these here. So you've got the meat pie here on the end. Then the next one is solenoid green, which is an Alfwitch gel. Then you've got bottom scratcher, which is for the invertebrates. Then you've got the spawn and grow gel mix, and then on the end here you've got the wood. So this one's morning wood, it's called. So that the morning wood I actually use for my clown plecos and flash pleco. The meat pie, I'll use that in most of the tanks. Anything with a carnivore in it, I'll use that. They love that stuff. This one, the solenoid green with the Alfwitch, I'll use this. I generally make these portions smaller as well. So once I've made a container of this, I'll cut it in half, and one half I'll make small portions, and then on the other half I'll make bigger portions, because I've got the tanks that I use this in are my L239s, which is the blue pinax. They eat this stuff, and then the smaller portions I'll drop into the tanks with the likes of the Otto Sinkless, which eat this kind of thing, and some of the dwarf cichlids will eat the same thing. So I'll drop a couple of small portions of that in there as well with them. This one's bottom scratcher, the invertebrate one, so this one's good for some of the plecos as well. And then obviously we've got the spawn and grow. Now the spawn and grow, I make a gel mix with this for the adults to bring them on, along with some of the frozen foods. I'll use that and this, and I'll also use some of this. We'll talk about that in a second. But then once I've actually been successful in breeding, the fry will eat this as well, because that's why it's a spawn and grow. So with this one, I actually take a small pinch out when the fry is small. I'll take a small pinch of this and I'll sprinkle it into the tanks, because they'll eat that straight off the top of the water, because a lot of the fish, when they spawn, in particular the rainbow fish that have spawned in the past, their fry tend to stay at the very, very top of this tank. So with that, I'll sprinkle a little bit of this on the top, on the surface, and they'll eat that straight off the surface. Other fish that tend to hide down in the bottom of the tank, in your spawning mops or in your moss at the bottom, you can actually throw in some of the gel food and sink it to the bottom, and they'll eat that straight from the bottom. But generally I tend to just sprinkle some of that in, so you can actually feed that as a dry food. So that's those ones out the way. The next one up for conditioning, I used this Sera Immune Pro Mini. It's a breeder food, slowly sinking breeder food. So you see that it says there breeder food on there, and this is good for their immune systems and stuff like that, and the general like, you can see there, I don't know if you can see that, stabilizes the intestinal flora, which is great, because I mean you're feeding them a high protein diet, so you want something that's going to help their digestive system as well. So this stuff, it's just a fine granule, so I'll feed this stuff as well. So it helps bringing them on. So we've covered the area of bringing them on to make them spawn. So you fatten them up with this stuff, they've spawned, and then you're thinking, what do I feed the fry? So this one is the very first to be fed. so I don't think you can see that down there, but this one. So this, it looks manky, and let me tell you, it does, it stinks. So this basically, this is infusoria. So in the bottom of the jar, I put some vegetables. I had frozen vegetables, so I used frozen vegetables, carrots and peas. I put them in the bottom of the jar. I tipped boiling hot water in just to cover them, to defrost them, and then let that cool down. Once that was cooled down, I tipped tank water inside, so then you fill that up with tank water, and then I put a clipping from one of the plants out of the tank in the top, which holds some of the bacteria that you want. Now you won't see anything in this. I mean, you can't see anything anyway. It's got a manky colour, but when you make this, it's really difficult to tell whether it's got anything in it, because the particles of food will float around, and you know the water will go cloudy, and people think that that's no good. It's just the food, and they tip it out, and then, because I've had that said to me a few times, you know, I'm trying to start an infusoria culture and I can't do it. I'll just keep tipping it away because it keeps going. You know, food bits floating around in it, and it's gone cloudy, and then that cloudiness is the breathing, the infusoria breathing inside the tank, or the jar. So the jar, then, if you're not too sure, if you take your little pipette, take some of the infusoria that you've created, and then get another like a pint glass or something like that, fill it up with water. It doesn't matter what water you use. You can use tank water if you want, or tap water will do. Put the end of the pipette into the pint glass, and then just squeeze out the water that's inside there. You'll see it come out the end. It will be like little tiny clouds of white stuff will come out the end, and that's the infusoria. You won't really see anything live in there because it's microscopic, so you're not going to see it swimming around or anything like that unless you looked at it under a microscope. So if you're struggling to start the culture up and you're not too sure, do that trick that I've just taught you. Take some of the infusoria in your pipette, put the pipette in the pint glass of water, and then just look through the pint glass as you squeeze the pipette into the water, and you'll see little tiny clouds of white that will go into the glass, and that's the infusoria. I've had a lot of people who'll turn around and say, "Oh, well, I've had to tip it away. It's no good. It's not working," and what have you. But if you're worried about this and you've already got your fish are already conditioned, you've got them in a breeding tank, and they're spawned, you've got nothing to feed the fry until this is ready. So if you worry about this first, make sure you get this right first. Normally what I do is I'll have this done a week or two in advance before I even condition the fish, because this will last a good few weeks at least. So I make sure that I've got this first, so I've got a food source for the fry. Depending on the size of the fry also, I mean, this is for really, really small fry. Now I use this for the rainbow fish that I breed, so that's great for them because they're very, really, really, really small fish. So we'll show you some of them later on in the video. So then next up is the golden pearl. So this is a really, really fine powder. So I'll feed this to them as well, along with, like I said, the spawn and grow stuff. I'll sprinkle some of this in there, along with some of this. Now this, I had to import this stuff. I couldn't find it anywhere in the UK, so I had it imported online. The same with this stuff. This was quite difficult to find online. I had to import this one from Germany, I think it was that I got this. I think I got this one from Australia. Golden pearl was from Australia. Then Then next after that, once I've done that, and the fryer big enough, I'll use this stuff. So this is a micro worm culture. You can see the little tiny worms. So all I'll do with this is I'll just scrape my finger inside, or I'll use, most of the time I'll use a piece of wood that I've snapped off one of the pieces of wood that I had for one of my tanks. So I'll scrape it along the side here, and then I'll just take that, I'll dip it in the water, and you'll see the little tiny worms falling off it, and the fish will go after them. Now this micro worm culture, you can buy these micro worm cultures, or a starter culture. You'll get them in something like this. Maybe you'll get a small bag like this, and it'll have some of these porridge oats inside of it. And then when you get it, all you do is you mix your own porridge oats, and you make them a little bit runnier than you would if you were going to eat them. Or you know, you make them quite runny, so then you don't want to fill the jar too much, because you're gonna replace this again. After a couple of weeks, say 2 weeks or something like that, you replace this. So you get another jar, make some of the porridge oats, mix that up, put it in the jar, sprinkle some yeast on the top here, and then you add your culture mix that you've bought. So you add that to this, and then you'll start seeing this within a week. Also, what I do is I tend to make a couple of these. So from your starter culture, if you can, split it into two, at least two, I'd say. Because if you get it wrong the first time, or if your culture crashes for any reason the first time, then you've got nothing left to start a new one. You'll have to go and buy a new one. I mean, they only cost about, I don't know, £2 on eBay, but rather than spending another £2, keep some. So what I do is, with this one, I've got two of these at the same time. So these cartons, I've actually bought these cartons because they're deeper than the ones that you can buy if you go to a restaurant or whatever. You'll get these from the local chippy or whatever. If you have a takeaway, you'll get these, but they're usually the smaller containers. So the depth for this, because you want as many worms as you can out of the actual mixture at the bottom. You don't want to be putting this mixture in your tank. It'll cloud your water up or whatever, and you don't want that. So I go with these deep ones. Now a lot of people, they tend to say, you know, you need to put holes in the top. I don't bother, and look at that. There's a whole load of worms in there. They don't need the oxygen. I take the lid off nearly enough every day to feed the fry. So I mean, even if it wasn't, these could go quite a while with that lid like that. I don't think they need oxygen, to be fair. But yeah, a lot of people like to say put some holes in the lid. I don't, and as you can see, you don't really need to. So yeah, so I build a second one of them, and I also keep the little bag like this. Get a little bag like this. Take some of the micro worms out of this in case the two crash. If the two of them crash, you've got some spares. Put this in the fridge with some of the micro worms in, because in the fridge, the cold temperatures, they won't breed like they do in this, because this is kept at room temperature. They breed quite fast, which is why you get so many. Whereas if you put them in this and then in the fridge, they won't breed half as fast as this. So just a little tip for you. So then once they're off that, I'll hatch baby brine shrimp. Now I just bought this premix. You can actually buy just decapsulated brine shrimp eggs, and then add your own aquarium salt or whatever to it, sea salt if you want. But this stuff, it's a premix. You can buy this online again. Artemia eggs mix. That's just beginner level, so that's just, you know, it's got all the salts and the eggs are all pre-mixed into the bag, and all you do is you take your baking spoons and you measure so much of that out, and then I put one or two teaspoons or a tablespoon into 2 litres of water, I've actually got a JBL Artemia hatchery. I've also got my own DIY hatchery that I made out of a 2 litre pop bottle. Drilled a hole in the cap, put an airline into it, glued it up with some hot glue or silicone, cut the bottom off. So you cut the bottom off your bottle so you can pour your water into the top, and your eggs. So you put the eggs in and you water in the bottle, and then you turn the airline on, that bubbles up, and then you put it next to a lamp, because the lamp will heat the water up, and it will also it'll bring them on with a light, because they're light reactive. So once you've got the brine shrimp hatched, within 24 to 48 hours they usually hatch generally. You rinse them off, put them in one of these, or this is what I do, put them in this with some tank water. So this is just a condiments jar from the local pound shop. And then what I do is once it's filled up with water and the baby brine shrimp, I just squeeze that into the tank, and that's it. So those are the main foods that I'll use for my tanks. So these tanks don't only just get what's on the table here. I've got plenty of other foods. I feed these fish a variety of foods. Make sure that I mix the diet up. These are just some of the foods that I tend to use a little bit more when I'm conditioning my fish. And as I say, the fry, they'll eat the smaller foods that I've just been through with you. So now we'll show you a short video clip of the fry that I have at the moment, which are the rainbow fish fry that are from this tank, and then we'll give you an update as well also on the fish that I unboxed last week. We'll see how they're doing. They're all doing fine, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel to see the future videos, and leave a comment in the comment section below if there's anything here that you don't understand, or if there's anything here that you wish me to link in comments for you to go and purchase, anything like that. Give us a comment in the section below. So yeah, thanks for watching. Right, so I promised to show you the fry that I've got on the breeding rack at the moment. So these are the rainbow fish fry that I've got at the moment. Feeding these infusoria and the occasional micro worms. Some of them are big enough to take micro worms. So, and I promised an update for the fish that I unboxed last week also. So this is the Trifasciata, the Apistogramma Trifasciata. As you can see, they're both in that shot there, hiding amongst the wood, and they're doing fine. There's a coconut cave in there for them. So this next shot is the Congo Tetras. As I said in the first video, these will take a few weeks to colour up. As you can see, they're not quite coloured up just yet. I've only had them a week, but they're doing fine. This one's the Apistogramma agassizi double reds, and I had to entice the female out with the bloodworm because she hides a lot more in that leaf litter at the bottom there. These have got a cave in here also for spawning. This next tank is the dwarf Corydoras that I got last week that I unboxed, and these are doing great as well. So thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment in the comment section.